Hey everybody, my name is Wes.
My name is Matt.
Matt, today we're talking about worship planning.
Worship planning.
The
yes.
MasterClass.
This is kind of the crux of ChurchTrac in a way, because it's about church service and actually leading that service. So let's dive in.
And fun fact, before ChurchTrac as we all know it was created, the worship aspect, which was never released until many years later, was actually created first.
Yeah, wait, really?
Yes, you didn't know that?
No, I didn't know
You
that.
learned something new today. All right, well, before we dive into all the things in terms of just planning worship services and using ChurchTrac to make that happen, just a few things we want to bring you up to speed on. First and foremost, if you're like me and you're like, hashtag reading is hard, you'd rather watch a movie, or in this case, a video, we have a great YouTube channel where we have so many videos and tutorials that show you how to use the different features in ChurchTrac, everything from worship planning, volunteer scheduling, to accounting, and so much more. So you definitely check that out. Another really great resource, Matt, our Facebook group.
Our Facebook group. We have a community of ChurchTrac users on Facebook. This is a private group that we would love for you to join. It's filled with ministers from all over the world that love ministry and love ChurchTrac so much that they would love to answer any questions you have about either of them. My favorite thing is seeing people post questions about stuff that has nothing to do with ChurchTrac.
Yeah.
And then just seeing all the comments of people jumping in and offering their advice. Love that community.
Awesome. And then last but not least, before we dive into all the meat of this stuff today, the help button in ChurchTrac. Anytime you need help, I just really want to encourage you, just click that help button. It's in the top right corner of your screen. You really can't miss it. We even made it a crazy, obnoxious tangerine color so you'd see it. But you can go to show all help topics to view our online user guide. You can search literally anything. So if you're wanting to learn more about maybe how to embed your online giving form or something like that, it would help if I would spell right, embed. And there you go, I can learn more about embedding our giving form in our church website. And also, if you're the kind of person that just likes to maybe reach out, create a support ticket, you can do that. You can schedule a phone call with us. It's really handy to be able to do that. I know I'm the kind of person, Matt, sometimes I just like to have a list of questions and then just get on the phone and hammer it out, get all my questions answered. So if that's you, well, you can do that as well. All right, so we are making this very interactive, hyper interactive, but not to the point where I'm going to be like jumping on the walls. Although people at my church make fun of me, Matt. I don't think I've ever told you this. They call me the crazy guy on stage.
Okay.
and like the old ladies will just be like, Wes, we just love seeing you worship up there because you're just like so energetic and stuff. And I'm just like, and I'm toned down compared to what I used to be back in my old days.
With your guitar.
Internally, I'm doing backflips in my mind.
In the spirit.
Well, it's just, man, worship is such a powerful thing. And when the Holy Spirit just moves into place and being able to bring God's word into all of it. But at the end of the day, we still have to plan for success in our worship services and everything. And yes, we rely a whole bunch on the Holy Spirit and God's word to guide us as we do this, but we still have to, plan things. And a big part of that is scheduling volunteers, picking the right songs that are going to go with the scripture from the sermon and all that. And so we can use this software to really help us do that. And today, I mean, we're going to make this super interactive. And so I'm calling all of you out. Obviously, if you're watching at a later time, we can't talk to you right now live. But for those of you who are watching live with us, I see you, Tim, Marcy, John, Robert. We're going to have a lot of fun today as we go through this stuff. And we're going to be going deep. Like, I'm not going to spend a crazy amount of time on like setup and all this kind of stuff. It's more so going to be attacking things head on of just how you can really leverage this the best and really just save yourself an insane amount of time in your planning and everything. Because I think you all, and let me know in the chat, like what is your role? Are you a worship leader? Are you a pastor? Like, let me know in the chat kind of your role at your church so I know where you're coming from. But I think many of you are all in this boat where you're wanting to disciple your people and everything. And the last thing you want to do is spend hours trying to figure out logistics of a worship service and like when to do things, who to schedule, all that. You want to be able to kind of streamline that so you can focus more on developing your team and everything. So yeah, let me know kind of what your role is so that way I know where some of you are coming from. So cool. All right, well, let's dive in. Today we're going to be talking about, Matt, just basically initial setup, and we'll skim through that real fast because we have other videos that go into better detail and everything. Creating and using templates. We're going to jump right into that just because that really, it's kind of the heart of planning worship in ChurchTrac. And then worship planning with side-by-side, which side-by-side is my best friend when it comes to that. And then we've got some really good pro tips that I think.
Some really good pro tips.
I think a couple of them came from you, a couple of them from me, and I think people are going to really appreciate these. And they're just little tidbits that I think go a long way.
Yes, like I keep saying this, I know you're tired of hearing me say this, but pro tips are those little things that aren't necessary, but if you do them, they'll take your experience from 90% great to 100% awesome. So we'll cover those at the end.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get started. Let's begin. And we are going to be answering questions as we go. Matt's manning the chat here remarkably well. But we will have dedicated time for Q&A after this masterclass too, so we can just dive into stuff and learn together. Because at the end of the day, there is no professional worship leader that, is like knows everything. We're all learning. And I get to learn from you all too, which is awesome. So let's talk about initial setup. So we're going to the worship and scheduling screen in ChurchTrac, and I want to talk about just getting things set up really, really fast. So we have all the different tabs we can go to. The setup tab is where we're going to go to first. And so when it comes to setting things up, we first want to just get all the initial things out of the way. Everything from, your song library columns, what's displayed there, your default service start times. Now, obviously, if your church has multiple services, well, you're going to have multiple default times and everything, especially if you have different types of services. And so this is geared more towards just your initial service. Song Select, connect your Song Select account if you are using Song Select. In fact, I'll just ask the question in the chat. Are you currently using Song Select? Song Select, yes or no? That is a big feature that it really is kind of a must these days because it just makes your life easier when you can pull songs in from Song Select, have CCLI number and all that good stuff. If you're not using Song Select, it's not necessary to be able to use ChurchTrac, but it does help you out tremendously. So you can import from Song Select and everything. So yes, no.
Yeah, mostly yeses, but there we go.
Yeah, it just
good to see everybody's watching and listening.
Yeah. This is what we make it interactive, and it really just comes down to your church whether or not you need Song Select. Because there are a lot of churches I've been to that just didn't need it because they did so many original songs and stuff and hymns,
which is great.
Yeah. So then going on, we have service elements. So if you haven't already done this, like these are all the different elements you would put in a worship service, things like baptism, things like your closing, maybe time of offering. I recommend just going ahead and adding those in, but you can add those in at any time, really. Having your different locations in place. This actually pulls from your church calendar. For most churches, you're only going to have a couple locations, but just know that this pulls from your calendar. So that way when you're doing any worship planning and scheduling in general, like it's all going to come from here. And then the templates tab, this is where we've got all our templates and everything. Now let's dive into, because when it comes to initial setup, you want to have your song library and all your songs added in there. And so let's really quickly just kind of, we're working our way sort of from right to left here, but you want to add in all your songs ahead of time, or at least the majority of songs that you use.
Yes.
I typically don't recommend, Matt, like churches just adding every single song from their previous song library, because a lot of times we're maybe not doing any more of those songs for quite some time.
Oh yeah. I mean, it would probably be helpful to pull up a report of songs used in the past, maybe over the past year, and import all of those, just because those are probably the ones you'll more likely use.
Yeah, so if you're a previous worship planning software, if you're using Excel sheets, if you have a way to do that, I would recommend doing that just so you're not adding an insane amount of songs into your library, but because it does take time as you add them and everything. When you add a song into ChurchTrac, you simply just go to add a song, and you can either add a new song by putting in all the information, the key signature, all that good stuff in there, or you can pull directly from Song Select. And so when I go to search Song Select, I can search a song like All My Boast. This is one of my favorite songs. I got to see this. I went to sing a couple of years ago, Matt.
At the conference?
Yeah, the conference. And I got to hear this song for the very first time with a room full of thousands of worship leaders. Let me know in the chat if you were at Sing, not this year, but last year. I'd be curious to know. But yeah, whenever I search a song, I can search for the song, song, find it, and then quickly add it to my library. I appreciate that it also lets you know, it looks like this song's already in your library. Do you want to add it again? I'm going to say yes, because maybe I want to put it in a different key. Because the way ChurchTrac operates, you kind of put songs in different keys, so that way you may have different keys of songs in there together. It's kind of like a song book. It's a little different from other platforms such as Planning Center, where you have like one song and then multiple keys within it and everything. So it's a little bit of a nuance to it, but I appreciate this just because that's how my brain works. But that's how you add songs in. And then as far as your songs, just a quick recap for those of you who didn't know, whenever you select a song, you just select on it and you can add in files, you can add in links. So if you have like a YouTube link or something, I love this for like putting a link for my lead guitarist.
Yeah.
So that way I can pull up like the lead guitar line for a particular worship song, and I'll put that link in there. And then I'll pull up another link for maybe my female vocalist for soprano, a female vocalist for the alto, and just make life easy for my team, because they have all the resources.
So they can check that beforehand so they know what this song entails for them.
Yeah. So it's good being able to attach all these different files, putting in these links and everything, and then your lyrics and chords, being able to do all the transposition, all that good stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing that when I first started working here and learned that, I thought, that's rad, that you can just flip that switch and make it a different key on the fly.
Yeah, like boom, there it is. Just transposing it out, putting it in multiple columns, printing it out, good to go. So yeah, being able to do that is such a big thing. And so getting your song library set up, and also like picking your songs and adding them to different collections is going to be a big thing. And so think of a collection as almost like, and Matt, maybe you can relate to this, just you have like different 3-ring binders. Maybe you have like one big 3-ring binder that has all of your songs, but then when it comes down to it, you just have a 3-ring binder that has like some of the songs you're doing right now or whatever. And so that's like how my brain internalizes this.
Okay.
Where these different collections, you can have one for maybe your current rotation of all your songs you got going on. Maybe you have one for all your hymns that you typically do at your church. Maybe you have one for just Christmas music. Highly, highly recommend leveraging these collections, because especially at times like Christmas, or when you're wanting to pull out hymns and stuff, or like I've got one of throwbacks, and it's kind of funny that these are now considered throwbacks.
What, good father?
Yeah, exactly. I actually haven't done that song in a few years now. It's about time to pull that one up out of the woodwork.
All right, so you got to hit up your worship leader then.
Yeah, so there we go. So that is the song library. Just kind of quickly wanted to jump in that. And I know some of you are like, holy smokes, Wes, you're moving fast. I know. And the reason why is because I really want us to dive into the whole aspect of templates and side-by-side, because I think that's going to be the biggest value you're going to pull out of this today. Because if I can get you to get at least 2 things in your belt or under your belt, however you want to say it, using templates and side-by-side and leveraging them for the needs of your team, this is going to be the thing that saves you the most time and makes your life just so much more enjoyable. So that is the song library. Now, teams and roles. We're going to briefly, I just want to mention teams.
We did a whole live stream.
We did.
Some of you watching may have been a part of it, but we did a whole live stream yesterday on volunteer scheduling, which is the other half of worship planning. We'll kind of skim through it here so that we cover that, but in a day or two, we'll have that live stream up on the YouTube channel. Go watch that for the deep dive.
Yeah. So and this is me, like, I don't have an outline for this. This is just me being off the cuff and knowing what I do in the software and how to use it. So when it comes to developing your teams, let me ask the question in the chat for those of you who are watching live right now. How many people are on your teams that you're scheduling? So like maybe you have just one team you schedule, maybe you have 2 different teams you schedule. However many, let me know in the chat how many people you're currently that are on your team right now as we speak. Because here's the thing. When it comes to developing your teams and roles, if you haven't done this already, or if you're in a situation where maybe you're rethinking all this, a big part hinges on how many people are on your team. Because let's say you're a smaller traditional church. You only have a few people that you're scheduling every week to be a part of your service. Maybe you have like a piano player and an organist, and then you have someone who's leading the communion and another person that is doing whatever. And so maybe you only have like 4 or 5 people that are actively doing everything. And then like your sound guy is running your sound, your live stream, and your lighting. Can I get an amen? I know those of you out there can really really relate to this, where you're like, I don't have like an individual person for this, and this. No, you typically may have just one person doing a whole bunch of stuff. So I say all that to say that don't overcomplicate your teams.
Yeah.
If you're a smaller church, you may only have one team and you'll have just a handful of roles. Now, if you're a larger church, my church is a little bit larger of a church, and so we have a dedicated worship team where we have all of these different team roles. And so I've got worship leader, keys, vocalist, drums, bass, guitar. I even have a saxophone player, 2 of them actually. So it really just comes down to your church. And so, yeah, like I see Jessica, 20 teams, 300 people. So in your situation, you have a lot of teams and you have a lot of different roles. And you definitely want to leverage that, because goodness, you do not want 200 people in one team. That would be insane. But yeah, just that's the big thing. And when it comes to teams and roles, just be thinking through what's appropriate. And once you start getting above, I would say 7 to 8 people in different types of roles, I would say, that's when it's time to think, maybe I need another team, because maybe, your church, you only have one person doing all the AV stuff, but then as time goes and then you have 5 different people doing AV stuff and then 2 people doing live stream stuff, like then you develop an entire team just for that section of it and have all those different roles and stuff. All right, so that is that. And just a quick recap in case for those of you who are like, how do I add a team? How do I create roles? All you do is select the add button here, and then I can create my team, and we're going to call this the awesome team, where everybody is awesome. And then we can start creating my roles by simply just going to the team roles here and then adding those roles. And then so I can call this person the Lego man, because everything is awesome in the Lego movie. And then I can start adding people to that role. I know this is a ridiculous thing, me saying awesome in Lego man, but at least it's going to stick with you, I think. So that's really quick. I just wanted to show teams and roles. Now, can I crack my fingers for this one? My knuckles? There we go. Yep. Maybe did the mic pick that one up? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. All right, y'all. So now let's get to cooking here and have a lot of fun as we create some templates and stuff. Because now that is what we're moving to. We're talking about creating and using templates. And the best way to dive into creating and using templates is really just to create a worship service and just do it. So we're
just do it.
Just do it.
We went from Lego movie to Nike.
Yeah. Sorry, my mind is a crazy place, and my wife can definitely attest to that. So we're going to go ahead and create a worship service. Now, here's what I'm going to do. Just because this worship service I want to create, Matt, later on we can change the date and everything. I mean, I can do it right now. Mm-hmm. I could actually just put February of 2020. And the reason I'm doing this is because I'm actually just creating this to be used as a template and everything later.
So you're just kind of moving it way back in the past to get it out of the way.
So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to call this template. And my rhyme and reason to my naming, there really isn't. It's really just what you want to name your stuff. And it's picking my start time, my end time, my calendar. And depending on your church, how you do everything, you may have a certain calendar you want to use. Add service from using a template? No, because I'm creating one. Location, worship building, service memo, service tags. This is kind of cool stuff if you want to get really deep into maybe you as you start going over the next few years, you could use the service tags like Easter and stuff like that to quickly pull your Easter services, whatever. So add this service. All right, so now I've got this service, and so now I can start building this service out. Mm-hmm. So that's what I want to do.
Here we go.
So I'm going to start adding my service items. And this is the process of building out a worship service and building out a template. It's the same, except after you build a template, you really don't need to build out a worship service, and you'll see why in a second. So I can start adding in all my different songs. I can add in my elements. Now, for the interest of time, I'm obviously not going to be very intentional in all the songs I pick.
Okay. So just click away.
Well, because I want to be real, we're all very intentional about the songs we pick because we want these to go with the sermon and everything. But what I'm going to do is just start pulling songs here. So I'm just going to pull all my boasts in Jesus. One thing I love, by the way, is you can search by key and everything and pull your collections. You can even search songs. If you're using CCLI with Song Select for pulling in your songs, you can search all the different tags. And so if I want to search a song that mentions something about glory or has that tag associated with it, I can do that. It's actually super helpful. Another thing that's super helpful is it tells you the last time songs were used and stuff too.
I like that search just because you can it kind of makes it easy to gather and plan songs according to the sermon, because you can use a keyword in the sermon title or on the theme.
Yeah.
And then this system will help you quickly find songs around that theme.
Yes. All right, so I just added a bunch of songs. Then notice I didn't have to like pick one at a time. I just started selecting a bunch, and then I just go to add them, and there you go. Now, if the song already has like a duration in it, it's going to pull in that duration too. So that's a good little note to have.
Nice.
And some churches...
There's the key too.
Yeah, it has the key and everything there. And then from here, I can start adding in my other items, because a service is much more than just music. A worship service is a culmination of getting into God's Word. It's a culmination of having a time of reflection. It's a time of so many things. And so I want to add those things. So I've got my elements, and I'm going to add my elements. Now, I'm not going to add an egg hunt. That's hilarious. I've just now noticed that. I guess you used that for a previous thing, Matt. But maybe in our service, we want to add an announcement, baptism. We have a closing. We have a time of offering. We have a time of scripture. Obviously, a time of sermon. Snoopy, what is going on, Matt? Y'all are getting crazy here.
That had to have been from Rebecca.
And then a video, and then maybe a testimony. I'm just going crazy here, y'all. But add these selected items, and there we go. Now I've got them all added. And then just comes down to the process of like ordering this stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. And so then I can go through and say, okay, well, I'm going to start out with Glorious Day, because why not? That is such a great song.
Start on a high note, man.
Yeah. Or, God's Not Dead Like a Lion. Let me know in the chat if any of you know that song. If you know that David Crowder song. That's such a great song. My God's not dead. He's surely alive. Anyways, so let's keep adding this stuff. And so I can go on here and say, all right, we've got our first song, and then we have maybe our announcements, or maybe it's like a welcome. I'm just throwing stuff in here because I want you to see the mechanics of it. And then maybe we do a time of baptism. Because right after announcements, we're already in that mode where we just want to start baptizing people before we start getting into the next bit of songs here. And so then we do that, and then maybe we do a time of scripture. So I'm just moving stuff around. This is so much better than using like a Word doc. One of my friends used to use Word docs for all this stuff, and you just have to kind of keep recreating the wheel every week. So then sermon. And then, but before we do the sermon, I actually want to have a video in there. So I'm just moving stuff around, y'all. Put it in there, and you just have to hover over that little, I always call it like the little, makes it the hand go up there. And you can click something, you can put in notes, you can put in time intervals and all that good stuff. And then from here, we can put in something like a video, and then like a time of offering. Let's say we can do that right here. I don't know, like this is typically not how I build out a worship service, but I just want to give everyone an idea. All right, so we've got that built. We've built it. It's done. And then we can start scheduling our people real fast. And I'm just going to quickly add some people in here. And you'll see why I'm doing this, because once you get in the template mode, like it's kind of beautiful. So I'm going to add my worship team. Now I've got some people written down here. I am going to add in, let's see, my first person, my worship leader, Eddie. And then I'll add in Jamie for the keys. So we'll put in Jamie. And then we're going to put Emily as a vocalist here. So Emily Baker is a vocalist. And y'all, this is the same exact process of like adding in all of our songs and our service elements. Charles, he's going to be playing drums, so I'll put in Charles Stetson. And then Tyler, let's put in Tyler Dawson for bass. That works for me. And then Jake left you on electric. We can do that. Now, some of you may look at this and say, Wes, that's a lot of people. I don't have that many people. It's okay. You got to start somewhere, and you also, it just makes your life easier, even when you have a smaller team, just planning this stuff out with a platform like this. And then let me just add in my AV people real fast too, because I don't have anybody in terms of that. So then I'll just go to town with my AV team here, and I'll start adding those. And so now I'm going to put in Matt Barker. He's going to be running our audio. Don't worry, despite his last name, he's actually a pretty quiet guy. John Hawley, he's going to be running our lyrics and display and everything. So I'll put him in.
Marcy said she's jealous that you have 6 keyboardists.
Yeah, well, my church is kind of a unique situation where I serve, because we have so many people that can serve in so many different roles, which is, that's a great problem to have.
It's a good problem.
But I do want to just kind of a little brief moment of encouragement for all of you. Go full screen on me, team. Yeah, there we go. I'm looking at this camera. I've served at a lot of churches doing worship, and I have been currently at a larger church with lots of different people, like I just told Matt. But I've also served at a church plant where for a few years, do you know how many people were on my worship team? Do you know?
You.
It was just me. I was just me on the acoustic guitar. And here's the cool thing, Matt. It's not about how big your worship team is.
No.
That is like the last thing that matters. It's about being able to give our focus to a holy God and to have that heart in as we go into this time of worship.
Amen.
And probably some of the most impactful times of my entire life worship were those week after week, just leading by myself on an acoustic guitar. There was one time our power went out, and it was me definitely acoustic because there was no power for me to plug in.
So it was acoustic unplugged.
Yeah, it was to the exact definition of it. But regardless, tools like this are helpful even if you are a team of one, because you can plan out all the other things and stuff, which is so important as we do this. And obviously scheduling is just a part of it. So as we add in all those people, and I accidentally jumped away from it. Oh man, we're sitting here talking, I jumped away. So real quick, I'm just gonna add some people real fast, just randomly here, because I just want you to get the idea. So I'm just adding in people now. I'm not even intentionally thinking because I don't need to prove this point. So we've added a bunch of people to add those names, and there you go. And now if there are any scheduling conflicts, like this is going back in time because I'm creating a previous one, so it's going to tell me there's a conflict there. But now I've got it all created. Okay. So now I have created all my people and everything, and to make this into a template, the only thing I have to do, there's one thing. I just click this edit button, and then I say use as a template, yes, that's it. And then it pulls from the title of the service and everything. And so I always encourage churches, like, make your template first before you start making all your services and everything. Just make a template first and then start creating all your services from that template. Because for the most part, we don't really change a crazy amount. Obviously, we have different services that, things are very much changed, like Easter and Christmas time and stuff like that. But our typical service has a very similar flow with just, maybe one week we have a baptism, but the next week we have a video. But as far as the general flow of worship, that's why templates are so great, because we're not recreating the wheel every single week. And so there we go. By just selecting use as a template, now I can use that as a template and start creating my services. Now, we've just created our template. We're ready to rock. That is, templates, there's really not much more to talk about them, except let's talk about use cases of templates. Okay. Because I think this is going to be a big thing. Let me ask the question to you all in the chat. Like, when it comes to your scheduling, well, I guess we'll do a yes, no first. Let me know in the chat, press 1 in the chat, if you have maybe a rotation where you have certain people one week and then certain people the next week. Let me know if that's you. So press 1 in the chat if that's how you plan worship in terms at least of the scheduling aspect and everything. And that's one of the examples I want to show real fast, because I've already gone ahead and I have created some templates in which I can kind of exercise that. And so, okay, a few of you, ones, yeah. And here's the thing.
Most.
Yeah, lots of you, good. There's a reason I asked this, is because this is a super common way to schedule people, especially beyond just like worship services, but just like your people on your welcome team, because I think a lot of people here are going to be using this to schedule their welcome team, schedule their children's ministry volunteers, hospitality, security team, parking lot, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we're going off of different week rotations, whether you have a team large enough where you can have people serve just 1 week a month, or maybe you have a smaller team where you may have people that serve every other week.
Yeah.
And
then another team that's so small, it's just them every week.
That's right. And it really just comes out of your church. So what I've done is I've already created, and I'm just going to call this worship 1. That way I know where I'm going with this. And our service, we're going to say that this is happening on March 2nd. And we're going to add using a template. Now, I've already got some templates I've created, and so I'm going to pull from my template worship A. Here's the cool thing. So this template, it's already got the people and everything from the previous week. Not the previous week. It's already got my people. It's already got songs and everything. I don't need to use the songs, so I'm going to use placeholders.
Yeah, Gabriel asked about that in the chat. How do I, I guess he knows that this is a thing, but he couldn't remember how to do it. How do I get so I can just click and choose something?
Yeah, so there you go. Use placeholders, and then from here I can either use the roles, and so the actual people themselves, I can use placeholders, or I can have no roles at all. And so if you're in the boat where you're like, hey, Wes, we're doing like every other week where we alternate teams for however it is, whatever you're scheduling for your worship, I would use the roles. That way you have all the people. So check this out. I add this service. Oh, let me put a location here, worship building. Add this service. And there we go. So now I've got my worship outline, and then I've got my scheduling and roles. There's all my people. And this is a previous template that I've created where I've got all my people here for my worship team and my AV team. Now, obviously, like I said, this can be all the different teams and stuff, but I'm just focusing on worship and AV just for simplicity's sake. Now I can send out my scheduling invites to my team, so that way they get those invites and they can respond to them. I highly recommend using our reminder messages, by the way. Very powerful feature. I typically just do 1 day before the event, but you may find 3 days before the event works better for your team. And you can also have your team get text message reminders. Highly recommend that if you're using our Twilio integration. And then, by the way, you can also send emails to your team, which is handy. So there we go. I just created that from the template. Now, I'm not going to go through and build all this out. I could, but I'm going to show later doing that, and you'll see why. So now I'm going to add another service here. So add. We're going to title this Worship Service Worship 2 because I'm doing this in sequential order and don't want to get myself confused. And many of you, I think, are going to probably put like the title of the different sermon series you may be doing, stuff like that.
Well, for the templates, it would be better for them to, let's say, like worship week 1.
Yeah.
Worship week 2 or something like that. Title it based on your rotation itself, because that's what Wes is illustrating right now. So you could have, if you're the kind of church that has people serve once a week or once a month, maybe 1 week a month, so the first Sunday or the second Sunday a month, you can then have your titles for the templates built accordingly.
Yeah, and so like you see right here, I've got my worship template, worship A, template, worship B. This time I'm picking worship B. And then again, in this case, I'm going to use the roles, but I'm going to use placeholders for the songs and everything. Location, pull the location, boom, add the service. There we go. Now I've got another service, same outline and everything, still need to add on all my songs, but now I've got a whole different team here.
Different set of, volunteers.
Whole different team, or in the words of that Disney movie, a whole new world. Okay, so that is creating templates. Let's talk about 3 things that I want to note as you create a service from a template. Number 1, it always pulls from your default service time. And as you saw me earlier when I was doing that, and I go to add a service, it's pulling that default service time that you create in your setup. Now, obviously, for many churches where they have multiple service times and things, that's not going to be a thing for you because you're going to have to update that and have a different time and stuff for your different services. But for many of you who only have one worship service on a Sunday or Wednesday, that's going to be great, and it's just one less thing to click and do, and then obviously add your template. The other thing I want to note is when you create your template using those songs or placeholders, at first I think you're going to probably make a mistake, and when you go to add in your template, so again, creating worship, let's say worship 3 here, and you go to add a service using a template, and now I'm going back to template A, you might accidentally use songs when you meant to use placeholders, use roles when you meant to use placeholders, or vice versa. So just after you do it a couple times, I think real quick you'll get the hang of it. And I think you're probably going to be doing the same thing every time, depending on how you are and how you operate, where you're just going to instinctively go, boom, use placeholders, or use roles, however you do it. And then the last thing I want to point out is you can have no roles or just completely you don't have to have both like scheduling people as well as like a worship outline. You can have a template that's just a worship outline. You can have a template that's just scheduling roles. And we actually showed that yesterday when we just focused on volunteer scheduling. So it's really up to you. Now, let's go ahead, let's talk about side-by-side, because side-by-side is really where the magic happens. And to get to side-by-side, all you have to do is you pick any service, doesn't matter which service, and then you scroll down just a hair and you'll see this little emblem that says side by side. Okay, and let me know in the chat if you've already used side by side. If you've used side by side, press 2 in the chat if you've used side by side already. I'm just kind of curious here. So side by side, it does exactly what it says it does, which is a rarity in our world where, Matt, I feel like everyone says there's something they're not, especially in the world of influencers and social media. But side by side is exactly what it says. I can load up to 4 worship services side by side. And so the way I do that, now that I've got this pulled up, is all I do is click the load services here, and I can then start selecting the services. So I can select worship 2. And then load selected service. And there you go. Now, I already created these services with those templates just a few minutes ago. And so whenever I scroll down, you can see I've got all my people here. I've got all the different elements and everything.
Nice.
And I think for the vast majority of people, Matt, once they start getting into side-by-side, they realize side-by-side is really where it's at. And they're probably this is going to be their best friend. Their second best friend was templates. Side-by-side is going to be their best friend.
This is their number, we talked earlier about how we'll cover some pro tips later. This is its own pro tip. This is the thing that if you get into side-by-side and start regularly using it to plan your services, it's going to make the process of worship and volunteer scheduling so much easier for you going forward. So I highly recommend, if there's nothing else you take away from this workshop, it is that side-by-side is the key to it all.
Yeah, because oftentimes we're planning weeks in advance.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll ask the question to those of you all in the chat right now, how many weeks in advance do you plan? Do you plan a few weeks out? And I'm not as much focused on the song necessarily, because sometimes we wait until the pastor gives us, at least at my church, we wait till basically a few days before, a week before, to decide on our exact song selection, just because we want it to coincide with what the pastor is also feeling in his message. But I'm more so just kind of thinking in the terms of your people and the gist of what your message will be on and stuff. I'm just kind of curious how many weeks y'all plan out. So Tim, you said 6 months. Matt says 0. Well, after today, Matt, maybe we can get you to 2 at least. 4 weeks for Andrea. Yeah. I find that most churches I work with, it comes down to the church. I work with a lot of Pentecostal churches where a week is kind of what they do, just because that's the culture of their church and how they operate. I talk with other churches, whether it's a Presbyterian church or an Anglican church, and they plan out 2 months with all their people and stuff. It really just comes down to the type of church you are and what's appropriate for how you plan worship. But just know that you can have up to 4 services side by side. Now, I showed loading a service that was already created with the template, but here's the beauty, is I can just start adding services right from here. And so I'm going to call this Worship 3. And this particular service, this is happening not on the 9th, but the 16th, so the next week. Add from a template. I'm going to pick no here, and you're going to see why. Location, worship building, blah, 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 add service. Okay. I have nothing in this service. Y'all, this is about to this is so crazy. All I have to do, let's say I want to copy the vast majority of everything from this service over, except for a couple things because we're not gonna have them. I can copy between services. Now I can just move one thing over. So I can pull this here and just choose this one song, move that over. So now I have a placeholder for a song. Or I can select and get real crazy, y'all, and just say, I want to move all this stuff over, except this next service, we're not doing a video. So I'm just going to move all that over here and boom, put that. What do you know? Nice. It's all there. I just copied and pasted in real life. So there you go. And if you want to click on something to edit it, look at this. I can actually edit that element, that scripture, put in whatever scripture that is. I can put in the song. So then I can choose a song. I can select it here. I can start pulling from my song library, just like I did on the other screen. You can literally almost do every single thing on side by side that you can on the previous screen. It's kind of wild, but it gets even better.
Yeah, Nate even said, I try 4 weeks planning out, but my pastor keeps adding last minute. And I feel like this, what you just illustrated, will make things really easy for you, Nate. Because in that last minute, you can just, okay, well, he wanted to do what he did 3 weeks ago, done. Yeah. Or, hey, okay, he made a quick change. All right, that's fine. I can just delete this and move on.
Let's give a good example. Like, let's say, all right, you originally wanted to use 10,000 Reasons. And then your pastor is like, actually, I really want you to do this one song. And you're like, okay, all I have to do is select that song and I can remove it from the outline. It's not hard. I can remove it, boom, delete it, and then I can add a different song and pick whatever it was the pastor was really wanting me to use for that sermon series or whatever.
Easy peasy.
It's best to plan ahead so that way there's just, it's less, you don't feel as crazy. Like, and I think, some of you are like, hey, Wes, I feel like we're in this thing where we're always just doing last minute changes. That may be so, but at least you've planned ahead of time and had the bulk of things done. But let's go a little deeper into side by side. So like I was just showing like moving things here. So here's the beauty too. Like let's say, all right, as I'm planning, and obviously I don't have like everything going on here, but like originally I was planning, I'm gonna add something here real fast. Let's say we were planning on doing a baptism in this particular service. So I can search my elements, there's baptism, so I added that. And then as you got talking to the pastor is like, hey, that person, we were planning on baptizing a person, but they actually are sick right now, so we're gonna have to move that to next week. That's the beauty of this. All I have to do is take it and say, all right, well, I'm not copying, I'm just moving it, so I toggle to move, and then I can move it to this service here, because we decided to do that baptism there. I can do that. Mm-hmm. Super easy to move things around. But let's talk, we've been talking about songs and elements. Let's talk about people, because this is, I think, where most of you are going to be spending a lot of your time doing this. So again, just like I showed earlier, like you can copy between services. And so like, if you're already in side by side and like you're not necessarily needing to pull a template or whatever, but you can just say, hey, I want to pull the entire band from this week and use all those people except Wayne, because Wayne can't serve this week, and I want to copy over to this week. I can do that. I can copy all those people over to that week, and there you go, I'm done. Let's say I'm planning out, and this is the beauty of this, like you're gonna do this all the time because this happens all the time. Jamie, I'm talking to Jamie, and Jamie and her husband, John, they're both keyboard players, which is awesome. And John is not as good as Jamie, but I'll never tell John that. But let's say Jamie and John, they need to swap because she's a nurse and she actually ended up having to work that week and she had to pick up another shift to help a friend. And so we're just gonna swap her and her husband real fast. So I can just move between services. Just make sure you toggle that there so you're not accidentally copying. But then I can move Jamie over here and say, all right, Jamie, you're gonna be now serving on the 2nd of March, and John, I'm gonna move John over here, and John's gonna serve over here. Boom, done. Love it. And then when it comes to sending out my scheduling requests, as we get going, you get all this stuff planned out, you can do all that right from here too. So I can send out my scheduling requests to my team, send out those reminder messages, pick which team I want to send them to. If it's just my worship team or you want to do worship and AV, you can do that. But yeah, I think most of you are probably going to be diving deep into side by side. I think most of you, like, this is where you're going to live for a lot of your time as you plan worship. So that is like, I could talk about side by side all day, Matt, because it's so remarkably easy to use and it just makes sense,
Well, it's not just that it makes sense, but like I said, this will be the thing that will make your experience so much better with worship planning, because it lets you see everything from that bird's eye view and get granular at the same exact time.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it. Let's go ahead. I don't know why I'm pulling out this was for something else. I'm pulling out my outline again. I want to just quickly give you all some pro tips that I think you're going to get a lot of good value out of. And we got 5 of them. We're going to tear through these really fast. The first one, I'm going to show my phone for this. And this is to encourage your people to set their availability. Did you know that your people in Church Connect, which is your church app, your church website, they can actually at any time, they can log in as a church member and they can just go to upcoming events. And on their upcoming events, anytime you have them scheduled for something, so like just for fun, like I think I already have Ron on one of these. I'm just gonna go ahead and double check because I wanna show this, what it looks like.
Right there.
Yeah, so I'm just going to mark Ron real fast as accepted. You can do that, by the way. So you always have that one person that will never respond to your request, but they'll tell you they can be there. You can automatically just mark them as accepted. So let me just refresh my screen because I wanted to show that real fast. So back to upcoming events. So when I go to upcoming events, there we go. There's that worship one that I just created a little earlier, and I've technically already accepted it, and I can view the outline and everything. But your people have the ability to update their availability. And this is so key because your people, when they update their availability, it means that you won't accidentally schedule them from when they're out of town and stuff. Highly recommend it. This is probably like, if there's something you were gonna like constantly just keep reminding your people of, I would do this. And we learned from another church a remarkable, like an addition pro tip that you could do for this is creating an automation in ChurchTrac. Now this is not on the worship planning screen, but creating an automation where you automatically email people once a month to remind them to set their availability and block out the dates that they're gonna be out of town and stuff. And if you wanna learn more about automations, just check out our video on automations. It's mind-blowing. It honestly is like one of the coolest things ever. If I wasn't such a nerd on worship, I would nerd out about automations all day too. But that's a cool one. Matt, pro tip number 2.
So for your worship team, make sure that you enable your song library. That's done under the Teams and Roles tab at the top of the screen in worship. And then select that team. And then at the bottom, there's those 2 toggle switches, worship outline and song library. Worship outline and songs, did you cover that earlier?
I already did,
okay, yeah. But the song library, it allows them to access the song library, like the whole library, at any time by logging into their Church Connect account. So make sure you enable that. That way your members, your worship team can practice, see what's coming up, get more familiar with the songs that you're typically using so that they're able to just jump right in.
And I want to show this on the cell phone. So team, I'm going to pull up my cell phone again. I want you all to see this. So all your people have to do to see the song library, if they're on the worship team or whatever team that has access to it, is when they click that menu in the top right, just to show you again, they can go click song library, or not click, just tap it on a phone. And then I can have access to the entire song library, and I just love this. One thing, this comes back to, it's like a pro tip within a pro tip. I feel like we're in Inception right now, Matt. But utilizing your starring and so actually like starring songs maybe, that's something we didn't mention earlier, but you can star songs and your people can then just see all the starred songs. I would do that because that way you're kind of indicating to all of your people, like these are the songs that are kind of on a regular rotation and stuff. So that way when they do want to just practice in their own time, because I'm gonna be honest, there are a lot of times I just sit in the couch and I just like throw on the app and just like listen to the songs and play along on my guitar. That way it just keeps my chops fresh and I'm not, coming on a Sunday morning doing terrible.
Coming in cold.
Yeah, I'm coming in hot, man. So that's a good one. All right, pro tip number 3. Use the songs usage report. Not only does it help you show your songs that you might be overplaying, but when you need to report to CCLI, it's kind of a must. So the song library, and then all you do is go to this little reporting emblem here. It's actually a printer icon, but if I click that, that's our song report, and I can generate a report for maybe a specific month or maybe like a quarter, whatever it may be, and see the number of times the song was used or the song title. So that way, either for your personal use of just knowing if you're overplaying Good Father, which the answer to that is probably yes. And then also...
But can you really overplay Good Father?
Well, I mean, I remember I overplayed Mighty to Save.
Oh,
I did. Yeah, well, it's a good song.
Yeah, it's a great song.
But yeah, it's helpful to have that. All right, pro tip number 4, Matt.
So pro tip number 4, creating song collections. We already talked about this kind of at the beginning of this live stream, but we want to hit it again just because it's going to keep this very well organized for you. Create some song collections just to make it easy for you to pull up the exact songs you're looking for rather than having to scroll or constantly type and search for it. Like we suggested earlier, have one for your current rotation just so that you can easily, quickly grab something that is, something that you're playing a lot but you haven't played in a few weeks, so it's not feeling like you've overplayed it. But also have others for special occasions like Christmas and Easter. That way you don't have to think through and, oh man, let's think through some really good Christmas hymns and carols. Well, no, you just click that button and there they are, and you pick your favorite ones and you move on.
And just to show off, like while you were talking, I don't even know if they were showing the screen, but I just did it. I just created a song selection called The Most Awesome Worship Songs, and it only has one. It's Mighty to Save.
Yeah. That's the only one you need.
Yeah,
just play that one 4 times every Sunday. Keeps it simple.
I'm kind of curious, like, have some of you just, this is like so off topic, but have some of you in the chat just like done a worship service where all the songs you picked in your worship service were throwbacks? I'm talking like really throwback, like Michael W. Smith.
Okay. So like the 90s.
Friend of God, like, oh man.
I'm a friend of God.
That's one of those songs, I can hear the beginning riff of it as he plays it in the piano and instantly know, like, oh yeah.
Oh, you mean Friends?
Oh, that's another one too. Yeah, I mean,
it's like a 3-key doo-doo-doo, and everyone just goes nuts.
Yes. So yeah, Regina says yes. Like I feel like
Regina knows.
I feel like I'm with my people here. You know, in terms of just. It's good to be home with all my people in worship. I'll say that. So that's a great pro tip, Matt. And then last but not least, speaking of not being there, when a person changes their status for an event. This is something that's kind of nice, and it's kind of like it's not hidden feature, but it's good to know that anytime a person changes their status on an event, it automatically updates accordingly. So let me show you what I mean. I'm going to go to that worship service, and I'm just going to go to the particular one. I think I had, Ron. Right now, Ronald is accepted. I'm going to go to that worship service on my phone. Team, you don't have to show my phone, but I'm just going to go back to that event. And whenever I go to that event, I can actually change my status on it here. So I'm going to hit decline. Watch what happens whenever I refresh my screen. Go back to scheduling and controls. There it is, declined. Not only that, I just got an email on my phone, like I just felt my phone, but I got an email notifying me. So obviously, it's a good practice to encourage our people to text us and let us know if last minute things come up. But it is nice to know that if your people like originally accepted, but then maybe a day later declined and gave you a reason why and stuff, like you're gonna see that immediately. You're gonna get an email, or whoever's the team leader of that particular team, they're going to get the email immediately saying, hey, so-and-so declined. In the future, I think we're gonna do some pretty wild stuff too, where maybe you can have like a backup person in place and ready. So if someone declines, the system will automatically like kick over to another person and ask them if they can serve. I don't know, we might get real crazy here at ChurchTrac. We'll see. I come in with lofty goals, and my developers are like, why?
No, they're like, please, no, Wes, please.
It's like Weston just like keeps bringing all these ideas. All right, so that is the pro tips. We've covered a lot. My goodness, we've covered so much, Matt. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. We talked about the initial setup. We've talked about templates. We've talked about side by side, and we got some pro tips to boot. We don't get to do these worship live streams as much, just because it is just one little small feature of everything in ChurchTrac. Yep. I mean, we're talking, our software has 6 other core screens in it, and this is just one of them. But I enjoy this so much just because, I mean, this is my home turf. We get to talk about worship. We get to talk about how we plan out our people and everything. And I just want to encourage all of you, whether you're leading a team of just yourself like I was for a few years, and you're just playing the acoustic or playing the piano and leading out, or you're leading a team of 200, 300 people. This is such a cool thing that we're all doing this together, Matt. I mean, it's worship. It's such a powerful thing, and it's such a powerful expression of who God is and his character. And we worship God through spirit, through song, through his truth in the word. And it's just so cool that we as believers get to come together and do this thing called worship, but also just think through how we can do it better and how we can make it just more streamlined. So ultimately, we're not spending all of our life and behind a computer screen, but we're actually spending it engaging with our team, engaging with our congregation, and being able to build the body of Christ. Well, this was fun.
This was
a lot. I need coffee now. I don't know about you. And you all have a fantastic rest of your week. We'll see you later.